we finally acknowledge the obvious, that Jerusalem is Israel's capital. This is nothing more or less than a recognition of reality. It is also the right thing to do.
Despite warnings from key allies, President Trump has changed decades of US Middle East policy.
Thank you very much.
His decision to call Jerusalem Israel's capital and to relocate the US embassy there has led to protests around the world and political condemnation.
C'est une décision regrettable.
Böyle bir adımı atmak dünyada özellikle bu bölgeyi ateş çemberinin içine atmaktır.
Indonesia mengecam keras pengakuan sepihak Amerika Serikat terhadap Jerusalem.
For more than 20 years, US presidents have had the option to move the embassy from Tel Aviv. The Jerusalem Embassy Act of 1995 states US policy is that Jerusalem should be recognized as the capital of the State of Israel, and the United States Embassy in Israel should be established in Jerusalem. Bill Clinton, George W. Bush and Barack Obama each postponed making that call. Every 6 months they were given the option of using a presidential waiver if it was necessary to protect the national security interests of the United States. Trump's decision this week means America will be on its own when it eventually moves the embassy. The Israeli and Palestinian conflict has been at the heart of modern US foreign policy. Donald Trump is not the first president to pursue an American-led peace deal, but he has taken a different path to his predecessors, and he doesn't think there has to be a two-state solution.
Israelis and Palestinians can make a deal. Historically, people say it can't happen. I say it can happen.
The potential for a deal was on the table when Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas met with Trump in September. Now, Abbas says the US can no longer be a peace broker.
إن هذه الإجراءات المستنكرة والمرفوضة تشكل تقويضاً متعمداً لجميع الجهود المبذولة من أجل تحقيق السلام.
Hamas says Trump's Jerusalem announcement will open the gates of hell.
We'd also like to say we can't react to this policy that's supported by the US in any other way than to launch a new intifada against the occupation.
Trump says the US action is not about specific boundaries or borders, but he does acknowledge the religious importance of Jerusalem for Muslims, Jews and Christians. Israel's Prime Minister says freedom of worship will be ensured.
There will be no change whatsoever to the status quo with the holy sites.
All challenges demand new approaches. My announcement today marks the beginning of a new approach to conflict between Israel and the Palestinians.
Will his approach be one that delivers peace or creates further bloodshed? Natalie Pohanen, The Newsmakers.
Well, to discuss this, I'm joined now from Ramallah by Mustafa Barghouti. He's the Secretary General of the Palestinian National Initiative. He's also a former member of the PLO and was a member of the Palestinian Unity Government. In Minneapolis, Jacob Milner, he's the spokesman for the Israel Project. And in Tel Aviv, Gideon Levy, he's an Israeli journalist and author. Gentlemen, I thank you very much for joining us on the Newsmakers. Mustafa Barghouti, let me begin with you. Trump's decision, did it surprise you?
No. We were not surprised because what he has done is very compatible with his behavior. It was a reckless decision, a irresponsible decision. And there were so many indications that this American administration is so biased to Israel. It did nothing to restrain Israel from expanding settlement activities, which went 100% more than it was since Trump was elected. It has not really supported the idea of Palestinian statehood and never said that. And now they came up with this crazy idea of recognizing Jerusalem as a capital of Israel, which makes the United States administration a participant in violation of international law, a participant in supporting occupation, and it puts the United States administration outside the ranks of any possibility of playing any positive role or any role to be specific in any peace process.
Okay, so
what has happened is very dangerous, very reckless.
Okay, dangerous, reckless. Jacob Milner, why has he done this now? I mean, essentially prejudging any final status issues taken aside in an intractable conflict. That's what Trump has done, hasn't he?
Well, you know, I think that President Trump has taken the position that the reality on the ground is that Jerusalem is the capital of Israel. Jerusalem, as he said yesterday, is the capital of Israel. It's the seat of government. It's where the parliament is. It's where...
It is not the capital
Jerusalem
of
is the
Israel.
capital
That's
of Israel,
what Israel
and
claims.
the United States government
in 1995 is not recognized by anybody in the world.
Jerusalem is the capital of Israel, and the 1995 Jerusalem Embassy Act, which says that the United States should move its embassy to Jerusalem, Trump just really looked at the realities on the ground and put into law that that the United States would uphold its commitment to recognize Jerusalem as the capital of Israel.
Gideon Levy, does this worry you? I mean, we look at the situation. We already see a call for a day of rage. We see Ismail Haniyeh calling for a new intifada. People are upset around and across the Arab and Muslim world. We could already see how this was going to play out, and it's playing out in that way. Does it worry you, Gideon Levy?
It worries me, but in a limited way, because I'm not sure that another intifada will come out of this declaration, even though, you know, you can never know. The first intifada broke because of a car accident, and frustration is there, justified frustration, and this declaration will not add anything positive to the sentiments which are in the occupied territories. But by the end of the day, one should remember that it's only a declaration of a president who is very problematic in the eyes of most of the world. I think the only place on earth that they really take him seriously and applaud him is Israel, and it says something about Israel. And by the end of the day, we might also see a scenario in which in a few weeks this whole thing will be almost forgotten.
Okay, interesting. That's an interesting take on it. Jacob Milner, does it take the shine off it for you that the only person congratulating Donald Trump seems to be Benjamin Netanyahu? Even allies across the board have condemned it, some harshly, some softly, but there's not a single nation in the world or leader in the world who has come out and said, hey, this is a good thing, because nobody recognizes Jerusalem as Israel's capital. Does it take the shine off it for you?
I don't think we should get caught up in the in the situation where we look at and say Trump has unpopular approval ratings in the United States or unpopular approval ratings across the world. I think the reality is that it's about time that the United States live up to its obligations from the 1995 Embassy Act and recognize the realities on the ground, which is that Jerusalem is the capital of Israel, it is the seat of government, and every country has the right to determine what city is its capital. The United States would not tell England that London isn't its capital or Paris is not the capital of France. And I recognize what Mr. Barghouti said earlier, that there are situations on the ground regarding final settlement discussions, and as President Trump said yesterday, the final status of Jerusalem is not negated by his decision yesterday to recognize Jerusalem as the capital. That can be part of a final
let's ask Mustafa Barghouti.
Discussion.
Okay, so
with
Mustafa
the
Barghouti, this does not negate final status agreements. Oslo still stands. The peace process still stands, according to Jacob Milner. What do you think?
I think we are not children who don't understand what's going on. This is a game by Mr. Trump and his allies to camouflage what he has done by talking that things will be negotiated later. But let me ask a question. If Trump recognized Jerusalem as a capital of Israel because Israel says it is its capital, why didn't he recognize East Jerusalem as a capital of Palestine, since we say that Jerusalem is the capital of Palestine? Why didn't he say he also recognizes Jerusalem as a capital of Palestine? He didn't do that because he's biased, because he's supporting occupation, because he's supporting a system of apartheid, because he is racist, because he does not understand the right of the Palestinian people to be free. And the Israelis are now very happy. Let them be happy with such a leader. It's fine. And intifada will start. In my opinion, it has already started. And it will go on. And when I say an intifada, I don't mean violence. I mean a repetition of the fascinating uprising that happened in Jerusalem, which was totally peaceful, totally nonviolent, and which forced Netanyahu to retreat from all the obstructions he has created in Jerusalem. What Mr. Trump has done is irresponsible, it is destabilizing the region, and it is much bigger than just an announcement. In reality, he has just declared the end and the death of Oslo process. He has just declared the end of 25 years of negotiations that resulted in nothing. It's sobering for us as Palestinians. Actually, it will help us because it will liberate our hands from all the restrictions that were put by the American administration, and we will see Israel in the International Court of Justice. And we will see Mr. Trump in the WHO and FAO and the Organization of Intellectual Property. We'll see what will he do when we join these institutions as a state of Palestine. Will he withdraw? Let's see.
Mr. Barghouti, do you regret all the negotiations then over the years? Are you basically stating that the likes of Hamas were right when they said the rest of you were wasting your time negotiating?
First of all, I am one of those who opposed Oslo Agreement from the very first beginning, because Oslo Agreement included three mistakes. I am not Hamas. I belong to the Palestinian Initiative, but like Edward Said and Haidar Abd al-Shafi, we all felt that it was a mistake because it was an agreement signed by the PLO recognizing Israel without Israel recognizing Palestine. It was a mistake because it was an agreement signed without stopping settlement activities. And the result is that we have now 750,000 settlers instead of 111,000. And it was a mistake because it was an interim agreement without deciding the final status issues. And the final status issues like Jerusalem, borders, refugees were postponed. Now they are eliminated because Netanyahu says, don't talk to me anymore. There will be no negotiations unless you recognize Jerusalem as the capital of Israel. That's the end of that horrible process. But that's not the end of the Palestinian cause. There is another very big issue too, which is that it is quite possible that the United States and Israel can kill the two-state solution. But then they will have to meet the fact that we will struggle for one-state solution.
Right.
And we will never accept to be slaves in a system of apartheid. This should be clear to everybody.
Okay, interesting point. Let me ask Gideon Levy. Gideon Levy, is there a silver lining then for Palestinians by the fact that the Trump administration has gone down this route? Does it make things a little bit clearer as to whose side the US is on? And might it, as Mustafa Barghouti suggests, open up the discussion for an eventual South Africa solution?
Absolutely. I think that what Donald Trump did may even be perceived in positive light if you see that he just put an end to the masquerade. And this masquerade is going on now for 25 years. My friend Dr. Barghouti mentioned the fact that Donald Trump proved that the United States is not an even mediator. The United States never was an even mediator. And the peace process was a joke from its beginning because never was there an Israeli partner who really had the intention to put an end to the occupation. Never. And as long as there was never an Israeli politician or Israeli leader or statesman who really thought genuinely to put an end to the occupation, peace process had no chance. Maybe the contribution of Donald Trump now is to put an end to this masquerade. And yes, the Palestinians and us Israelis should realize that the funeral of the two-state solution took place already. It's not that it's going to die. The funeral took place already. This train left the station and it will never get back. And we have to draw the conclusion out of it, namely to change the discourse and to start to talk about equal rights. This should be the new discourse. And let's see how will Israel react to this discourse? Because, you know, saying no to equal rights is declaring an apartheid state. And let's see how the West will react to a new apartheid system in the world. Will it just stand still and do nothing? Will it accept another apartheid state? Or will it react like it reacted with the first apartheid state?
Okay, so Jacob Milner, you have two other guests here, one Israeli, one Palestinian. both telling you, one in Ramallah, one in Tel Aviv, both telling you the two-state solution is dead and buried. It's a masquerade. It's a fiction. It's time to think more creatively and move forward. What do you think?
Well, there's a whole lot to unpack in this back and forth right now, but I don't believe that the two-state solution is dead, and I don't think that the Trump announcement yesterday puts an end to the two-state solution. I would argue, contrary to what Mr. Barghouti said, that the Israelis don't have a willing partner for peace, as we've seen over the years in negotiations. And I would say also that what we see right now coming out of this declaring a day of rage or another intifada only shows that the Israelis don't have a real partner for peace, because how can the Israelis negotiate with with a people that will incite violence if they don't get what they want? And I think that really shows the true face.
Who talked about violence? I want to ask you
Hamas a question, right now threatens
if he believes in no. I want to ask a question. If he believes in two-state solution, let him tell me: will he accept that East Jerusalem will be the capital of the Palestinian state?
First of all, that is not for me to decide. That, I think, should be a discussion between the Israelis and the Palestinians on the ground. I think if that was something that would be decided
can you
between
tell
the
me,
Israelis
please?
and the
Can you tell me what are the borders of Israel? No, tell me what are the borders of the state of Israel? What are the borders of the states of Israel?
This is not,
Is it the Jordan Valley?
This is not for me to tell you.
How can you say that Palestinians are not a partner for peace when Israel is the only country in the world that does not say what its borders are? It is Mr. Netanyahu that does not want peace.
Okay, so Jacob,
it is all Israeli leaders that did not want peace.
Okay, so Jacob,
it is the government of Israel that insists on keeping occupation. So don't sell us these lies.
Okay,
we are tired of these lies. Enough is enough.
Okay, so Jacob Milner, doesn't the man make a good point? On the one hand, you're saying it's up to the Israelis and the Palestinians to decide down the road when they're talking. On the other hand, you're saying if Israel wants Jerusalem to be its capital, Trump must just recognize it. Where were the Palestinians in that decision?
No, so to get back to the previous point, I believe that the final status, the final borders between Israel and a future Palestinian state should be decided between Israel and the Palestinians. Obviously, we can sit here and discuss lines, the Jordan Valley or the 67 lines or the armistice lines. We can go back and forth and back and forth. But again, that's not for me to decide. I think that is for the people on the ground to decide. Regarding the decision made yesterday by the Trump administration.
The whole of Palestine will be the joint state, and I will be running to be the prime minister of that state. And maybe I will be winning. And it will not be a Jewish-only state. That's fine. It's fine with me. I think Gideon Levy will vote for me. And let's do it. You don't want two-state solution?
Absolutely.
Fine. Let's do one-state solution.
Okay.
Me and Gideon Levy will be together in one level.
I do believe that
against Netanyahu, against the extremists like Likud party.
Okay, Jacob, I want a final comment from Jacob and then a final one from Gideon. Jacob, go ahead.
I believe that Israel should exist as a Jewish and democratic state. I believe that what is occurring on the ground in Israel, the recognition of Jerusalem as the capital of Israel, does not negate any Palestinian claims to parts of East Jerusalem or parts of the West Bank. I think that what is going on the ground is a recognition of the realities on the ground. I believe that the final status between the Israelis and the Palestinians should be negotiated between Israel and the Palestinians in a way that both
do you support ending
occupation? Solutions to the conflict. I believe that they should come to an agreement between Israel and the Palestinians in a way that is equitable for both sides.
Okay, let me ask Gideon Levy. Gideon,
why you impose Israel?
Okay, Mustafa and Jacob, because we are running out of time, I want a final word from Gideon Levy. Gideon Levy, what do you make of the fact that I've been doing this for a little while and for more than a decade, discussing this issue with esteemed gentlemen such as yourselves, and what's interesting for me is that a decade ago, the very concept of one state was very marginal and seen as something that was said only by fringe activists. Now it's in the mainstream discourse. What does that tell you about Israel and Palestine in the year 2017, Gideon?
This is a source of hope. I mean, if there are some good news around, this is a source for good news. If there is any place for optimism, This is the reason. But by the end of the day, don't be mistaken, in Israel there is no intention whatsoever to go for one democratic state, one secular democratic state. In Israel, it's almost a taboo to mention it. It's still a long way to go, but we have to start it, and we have to stop repeating ourselves about a train that left the station. There will never be a two-state solution because the settlers won, because 700,000 settlers will never be evacuated, and without their evacuation, there will never be a viable Palestinian state. And let's realize it, and at least for our friends in the West who care about freedom or justice, try to release yourself from those chains of the two-state solution. It was a wonderful solution, but it's not relevant anymore. Let's realize it, and let's start to work on the notion of equal rights. Who can say no to equal rights, for God's sake? And what justification can be to say no to equal rights? Okay. Israel wants a Jewish state, okay, fair enough. But then it had to give up the occupation a long time ago.
Right.
You can't have it all.
Okay, Gideon Levy, Jacob Milner and Mustafa Barghouti, I've got to move on, but I do really appreciate that you all took the time to come on the Newsmakers. Thank you very much.